Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. It's me again, Jen. Woo, hello. I hope everyone is doing well on this Tuesday. It is the 15th of September, and we are halfway through the month, which means we are also halfway through the Goddess Tarot, which is a tarot deck that is written and illustrated by Chris Walder. And I think these are absolutely beautiful decks. They've been in my collection for many, many years. And you can kind of tell by the book that they've seen some action. I feel super guilty for the way that book looks. But I really adore these cards. I don't typically do readings with them just because they are so large and they're kind of unwieldy. But the imagery is absolutely gorgeous. And it's very goddess-centric. And I absolutely adore every part of that. So without further ado, let's see what card we have for this Tuesday. Aha! Okay, this is really funny because we drew a 2 yesterday and we drew a 2 again today. So the 2 of Swords this time we have drawn, and 2s again are always going to be that balance between two things. They're going to be a duality of some kind. The 2 of Swords to me kind of represents that making a choice, and sometimes neither choice is a good choice, but you kind of got to look within yourself to make that choice. And I'll break down why all of those things are represented symbolically in this card, but I also want to talk a little bit first about the swords. And the swords is a suit that in this particular deck are represented by Isis. So you're going to see a lot of Egyptian symbolism and a lot of Egyptian energy kind of coming off of these cards. We have the beautiful dark braided hair on our characters. If you look, she's got this beaded collar, and she's dressed and she's sitting in front of like the flowers in the background, and clearly probably the Nile River. Also behind her, it's a little more arid. It's a little less of that verdant Nile River Valley look, but it does represent still that energy of air that Isis represents, which and yes, I admit, it's a little confusing because you've got massive water symbology with the Nile, and you have kind of almost a fire symbology with the arid dryness of the desert. But Isis is definitely a goddess of air, just because she does fly up and down the Nile River when she's looking for the body parts of Osiris, and she always has her wings outspread to protect and guide people as they cross over to the other realms. So she is an air sign. I totally am into that. But I do think that the suit of swords is a little bit confusing because of all the other symbolism that's in it. So that said, swords is air, which means that we're going to have a lot of like intellect involved in this because it's about communication and intellectual choices and all of those kinds of things with swords. With the 2 of Swords, which is that she's balancing these 2 swords kind of in her hands on her arms, and she's blindfolded. So the blindfold really is in even the more traditional decks. She is blindfolded because you kind of want to get the feeling that she's like Justice is blind. You look within, you look inside. She's looking within herself. She's trying to find the guidance and not be swayed either way by what she sees with her eyes, her physical eyes. So it's all about kind of feeling and intuition and that intellect of what we have inside of all. And with the swords balanced on either side, this really represents to me that duality of choice. Sometimes there isn't a good choice. I also really love that when they are the 2 of Swords, and it almost looks like she's caught in between them, where they're like scissored together almost around the person, because I do think that the 2 of Swords is one of those cards that it's like sometimes when you make a choice, no matter what the choice is, it isn't really a good choice. It's the lesser of two evils kind of choice, or it's the one that's going to push you forward to make better choices in the future. Because a lot of times we're set into the position that the 2 of Swords represents because we've made some bad choices all along, and now it's like, hey, they've all come to a head, and you've got to pick, and you've got to grow up, and you've got to do something that puts you in a better place, puts you on a path where maybe you don't have to make these decisions that are so difficult, and you can coast for a little while. But that said, I do like that in this one, she's also sitting by the Nile, and it's very calm. So the Nile being a river, rivers are usually not super roaring things unless there's been major storms and things like that. But there's a peace and a calmness to her choice. She's really contemplating it. It's very meditative with the waters behind her because again, in the cards, water does typically represent emotion. So rough waves and craziness is going to represent emotions that are kind of out of control and need to be settled down. Whereas in this one, it's more about controlling those emotions and settling that and having peace and patience and waiting out the right time to make the decision that she's going to be forced to make. So when I see this card, when this card comes up in a reading and I say, okay, you're going to have to make a choice, but you don't have to make it quickly. Take the time it takes, do the research, do the internal soul searching part of it to really say, okay, this is what's right. This is what I need before you go jumping into something. A sword that is a very jump to conclusions, jump to action is more the knights. They are very much like, hey, we're just going to drive right in and we're just going to do this thing. She is more contemplative. She is more rested in and invested in the choice that she makes. So when I look at this card, I don't think the energy of the knight, quick, make a decision, you don't have time. This is make the list, weigh the pros and cons, put down like every little bulleted point. Take the time, ask questions of other people who may have already had to make this decision and use that as your way to guide yourself. But also, ultimately, because she is blindfolded, it is about how you process all of that information and what you get out of it. Because again, somebody else may have made this decision, this exact same decision, and it worked out for them one way, but you may have to make the same decision and it's going to work out totally different for you. So when I look at this card, I do think it is all about making those hard choices after a lot of research and contemplation. So research, contemplation, calm, all of those things on this wonderful Tuesday, halfway through the month. Maybe that's kind of what it's leaning toward is, hey, we're halfway through the month. We're leaning into fall and the end of the year, and a lot of choices are going to have to be made. So think about them, contemplate them, and really do the soul searching that is necessary for those. And until next time, check out the playlist for the rest of the cards that we've done this month. And check out the links in the description below to see all the weird stuff that I'm doing on my Discord channel and all of these other things. And please feel free, leave a comment. I'm always interested to see how you guys perceive these cards and how you kind of pick them apart yourselves. And if you've ever had this come up with a reading and gone, no, wait, this came out really weird in a reading one time. I love to hear those kinds of stories. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!